Hello, Alicia. I'm going to try and explain my thought processes behind the reports for the online assessments and the results grids. So the reason for it being out of a set number of marks rather than just the last three questions is because the data needs to be comparable. So let me explain. If we have a look at this example here, we've got subtopic A, I don't know, maybe cells, and we've got subtopic B, let's say specialised cells. If we were to use the last three questions, for subtopic A, the last three questions might have only been very small questions, only out of a few marks. So the first one was out of 1 mark, question 2 was out of 2 marks, and question 3 was out of 2 marks. So that gives the student a score of 3 out of 5 or 60%. Now subtopic B, the last three questions here happen to be a lot longer, a lot harder. So we've got 2 out of 6, 6 out of 8 and 3 out of 6. So much longer questions, probably harder questions as well. So that gives the student 11 out of 20 and 55%. Now what teachers will need to be able to do is to compare like with like. Okay. In the case of the key knowledge questions, all the questions are worth the same number of marks. They're always 1. So if they get it right, they get 1 out of 1. If they get it right again, they get 2 out of 2. So that means that all the data for the key knowledge quizzes is comparable, no matter what subtopic you're looking at. In maths, they're almost all worth all the questions that is, are worth about 2 to 3 marks. So again, the simpler flow of just using the last 3 questions is fine because the number of marks doesn't really vary. So it shouldn't really affect the sort of robustness or quality of the data. However, for the results grids, and the online assessments, the marks for any one question, could vary quite a lot. So anywhere between 1 mark to all the way up to 12 marks, as I've tried to give an example here. And so the data isn't really comparable here. This is only out of 5 marks, while this one's out of 20. So, like I said, it's about being able to compare like with like. So that's my reasoning behind going with a set number of marks. I went with 15, but it doesn't have to be 15. Now, as you said earlier today, the issue comes with if I was to say that it takes an average of the last 15 marks. That's fine in this scenario here because it's out of 5, so it would just average the last 3 questions. If it was out of 3, again, that's fine, it would just average the last 5 questions because they both make up 15 marks, that's fine. The issue comes when, for example, if the question was out of 4 marks, it doesn't make 15 marks. So that's why this is where I'm a little bit unsure. So either the system would allow a mark out of a range, so 15 to 18, and then it should be divisible by most numbers, or 15 to 20, something like that. So the alternative is that we sort of work everything out as if it was out of 15. So in this case we've got 13 out of 16 marks, which is 81%. So if I worked out what 15 is as a percentage of 16, it's 93.75%. So if I tried to work this out almost like a pro rata, so 13 times 93% means that out of 15 it's the equivalent of 12.187. So if I had 12.187 marks out of 15, it gives me the same score pretty much as the mark out of 16. So it's kind of like a prorated amount. If I give you one more example, if we had a mark of 15 out of 18, what would the equivalent be out of 15 marks? Well, 15 out of 18 is 83%. So if I times my 15 by 83%, I get 12.5. If I so that gives me 12.5 marks out of 15. Okay, so it's that score there, 15 out of 18, but the equivalent marks out of 15 would be 12.5, and if you look, the percentages are worth the same amount. So that's one idea. I'm not saying it has to happen like that, but the idea is, like I said, so that the data is comparable where there's such a big range in the potential number of marks available. I hope that's helped. It's quite complicated.